I tell people all the time, this is a no money down business. You don't have to step in this business with a 4-year education. You don't have to step in this business with, all you have to do is bring the right attitude and the right effort and continuously bring that every single day and be a student of the game. And there is no limit to what's out there.
Hey, all you Keep the Changers, welcome to another issue of Keep the Change. We're so glad you're here. It seems like our guests go to another level every week, and that's nothing against the guests in the past. It's just because of the fact that there's such elite leaders out there, and because of the fact that automotive has had opportunities for elite leaders to show their wares. And this particular gentleman is at the top of that chain in terms of being an elite leader. Ed Roberts is an author. He's a family man. He's a father. He's a husband. He's a leader. He's got his own leadership company. He's a COO of Bozard, Ford, Lincoln, Mercury in St. Augustine, Florida. And most of all, he's so highly respected. Most of all, he's so highly respected as someone who is a great human. And I'm so honored to have Ed on our podcast today. Ed Bozart, welcome to Keep the Change.
Bart, man, it's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me on. And as you said, the audience keeps getting better. Well, that's the statement to you, that you continue to go out there and chase and find the ones that can bring their change to your audience.
You know, Ed, I have to tell you, don't tell anybody this, but I'm very selfish because the reason I do it is it makes me better. And I know it makes hundreds and hundreds of people better by listening to people like you. But there's nothing like having 40 minutes with Ed Roberts and really picking Ed Roberts's brain and talking about what makes you tick. And I think what's so cool about that is you and I could never do that. We might have a 5 or 10 minute conversation and then be distracted. But unless we're sitting down breaking bread, we don't get these opportunities. So this makes it just really special for me and for our audience. So Ed, you've got some new news on the horizon that has happened the last few weeks. Tell us a little bit about what's going on in your leadership world.
Well, first, let me thank you because you said it makes you better, and you have to realize that you can get better to chase getting better. And
Yes.
so thank you for that. And that should be what we're all doing, is chasing to get ourselves to, or pushing ourselves to get better. And I have been blessed throughout my career. The Obviously started with some bumpy beginnings, but life is what we make it, and we can't control the cards that we're dealt. We control how we play them, and there obviously we're going to get to where we might draw the wrong one every now and then and have to pivot a bit, but that's part of it. But the new news out there is I have taken on the additional role, in addition to COO, of general manager here at Bozard Ford Lincoln, and we really have a focus on growing our brand next year and expanding out into some new verticals.
So tell me a little bit about that. I know that was a big decision for you. You were drifting toward other areas and you stepped back and decided to take this on at a whole different level. So tell us about that and how that you see 2026 expanding because of this decision.
Well, some of the audience knows and some of them doesn't, but I have a executive coaching business as well, and then also a service consulting business. And it that demand has skyrocketed over the last couple of years. Obviously, a lot of people's paying attention to fixed ops more so. And then the everyone is looking into this element of leadership, to where how can I be a better leader?
Mm.
So that drives some of my executive coaching a bit. And I was going to step out and go into and do that full time along with my coaches that I have in field. But as we looked in the mirror of what we have here, we're not done here. We're truly just getting started. And we have came from a small town store to a juggernaut still in a small town. And but we're not done. And we're truly just getting started. And looking at it through that lens, would say, if we're not done, why would I do something else?
Mm.
So I will continue to run the other. I have a team of coaches that I work with that are phenomenal, but let's continue to push this deal forward and see where it can go.
All right. So how have you done this? I mean, when I look at people that have massive success, and again, you mentioned you have come from a place that was tough beginnings at first. And here you are at this place where you're a person of faith, you're a person that loves his family, you pour your heart into that, and you also pour your heart into your business. What do you believe was the shift way back a long time ago that allowed you to get from that place, not maybe of brokenness, but maybe of struggle, to this place today where you've
Well, let's dive into that a bit because let's paint the picture of where that comes from. I got in this business in 1992, and let's back up a little bit from that. So that dates me a little bit there. But it's been a great ride. But let's back up a little bit from that. As a kid growing up, I grew up in the ghetto of Jacksonville, Florida, and in the ghetto, those are the places where when you roll through in your car that you make sure your doors were locked and whatever else, because it's not just one person standing out there that might scare you. It's everybody. It's the entire surroundings. And that's where I grew up. And I come from a family that was very much into crime and drugs and prostitution. And I was the fourth of five kids, and watching them watching the sheriff's office come and bust our door down and take control of everybody in the house, trying to figure out who's my dad or who's my brother or who's my sister or whoever they was there to get. At some point, I opened my eyes and I said, "This isn't normal." And you talk about being a man of faith, Bart. That came from up above
Mm.
because when you live in that world, it's the only thing you know. And so someone, something, somehow spoke to me and said, "This isn't normal." And I started paying more attention. And man, I can't tell you how many times I've had my head stepped on with them coming in and taking control because they don't know who's in the house. They got to figure those things out. And you start to ask yourself, well, those are people too, and they're not living this life. They're doing that to us because in that environment, you feel like they're doing it to you rather than you put yourself in that position.
Mhm.
And so I self inflicted and became homeless. I left that environment at the age of 14 and started sleeping in a car. Still wanted to go to school. So I continued to go to school. Probably didn't smell the best going to school because I only got a chance to take a bath or a shower maybe once a week if I was lucky. But I decided that if I was going to not live in that environment, I had to separate myself from that environment because it isn't just my house that was that way. It's the house across the street. It's the house next door. That's the world we lived in. And so your entire surroundings is that. And it, and why I made that decision to go out and do it, who knows? It has to be from another power. But something opened my eyes and said, let's go do something different. And automotive was truly an accident. I never set out to go be a car person by any means. I certainly recommend people to get into it now in the right environment. But I found my way into the automotive business, but that was a little bit bumpy there as well. As I continued to go through school, we had a job fair, and there was a gentleman there that worked at a car dealer, and I asked him for a job. Didn't necessarily have the best tactics of asking him for a job, but I wasn't scared, so I asked him for a job, and he said, "Come by and see me." So I did. Went by and seen him, and he said, "If you think you can work on a car, I'll give you a chance." He says, "You have any tools?" And there was no way I was going to tell him I didn't have any tools, but I didn't. And I said, "Sure, I got tools." And I went out that weekend and did what I did, and that was digging dumpsters. And that's how I
Wow.
took care of myself. I got anything I could recycle: cardboard, aluminum cans, glass bottles, any of that stuff. And it was 4th of July weekend of 1992, and so there was more than I would normally run into because people were out partying, having a good time, and I was thankful for that. And made $400 in recyclables and went to Sears and bought $400 worth of tools. And I go by my family's home and I tell them that I'm starting a new job tomorrow. And they beat me down mentally and tell me that you're not cut out for that. You're not one of them. You'll never make it out there. You just wasted your money. You might as well take that stuff back to Sears, get your money back.
Mm.
And I said, I don't necessarily think that's the case. And I went to that car dealer the next day. And the gentleman that hired me the previous week told me that he says, "I won't be on vacation next week when you come in." He said, "But come in and ask for my assistant. I'll have everything set up. He'll set you up with Terry. You'll be work with Terry and as his apprentice, and we'll take it from there." And so when I came in on that Monday, That gentleman was not necessarily expecting to see who he saw, but I was a hoodlum. I looked like a hoodlum, smelled like a hoodlum, sound like a hoodlum, because I was. That's where I come from. And I told him, I said, "Hey, Conrad told me that he'd give me a job and come in to see you, that he was gonna be on vacation this week, and, I'm supposed to work with Terry. Just tell me where I need to go." And after 10 or 15 minutes of going back and forth, he was adamant that he was not gonna give me a chance, and he says, "There's no place for you here."
Mm.
And, so going back and forth a few minutes, I took it at what it was and left, and now I'm sitting out there at the traffic light waiting to turn left and take that stuff back to Sears, and it's replaying back through my mind, and my family's telling me, "You're not one of them. You can't make it out there." And when you hear that and then you get told that from the other side, now you feel like it's gone full circle. It's, well, that's what I was told and that's what happened. And you question yourself. But I said, I'm not ready to give up yet. And I hadn't been on that side of town very often. So I didn't know exactly where I was at, but I needed to turn left to go back to Sears. And I said, "Well, I'm not going to turn left yet. I'm going to turn right and go see what happens." And ended up driving for 5 or 6 miles, and ended up at another Ford dealer and went in there, and that guy gave me an opportunity. And it's easy to say the rest is history, but that's what I needed. I needed that opportunity to get my foot in the door to make something happen. And I have the utmost respect for the gentleman that gave me that opportunity. We're still good friends today. I dedicated my book to him. And that's what opened the door for me to get into the automotive industry. And it has been nothing short of rewarding from day one.
Mm. Unbelievable, the resourcefulness that you weren't going to give up, that you really had a picture of yourself different than everybody else had. Craig Groeschel wrote a book called Winning the War in Your Mind, and he talks about the lies. And that's the first, at the end of the first chapter, write down all those lies. Now we're done with all those lies. Now it's time to ask God what the truth is, right? And you found the truth. Somebody was praying for you,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah. The tenacity was there, but ultimately something got me out there. Something got me connected with him. And if I wouldn't have got, and if that second person I came into contact with at that second store, if he'd have told me no, how many no's could I have accepted and still went on?
Mm.
So I'm thankful that I wasn't told no time after time again, and that I was given the opportunity. But that was just the opening. I mean, you still got to go make it count. And things don't fall in your lap. You got to make it happen. But I probably needed that first no to fuel me even further to go make something happen.
So good. Thank you for that. You know what's so fascinating about that too is that we can start at this place. And everybody I talk to, whether it's yourself, David Long, or anybody else that's come on here, and I say everybody, but I say that a little tongue in cheek. So many folks have really had the tough road and overcame the tough road to get where they are. Ed, I'm not proud of my story, but I'll throw it in since you brought up yours. My dad was a car dealer and I was a drunk and I wrecked 6 cars in high school. And I would get to the point where I'd wreck a car and my mom would call the sales manager and say, "Bart's coming in for another car. Don't tell LK," who was my dad. So he didn't even know how many I wrecked.
Yep.
But my point of that was somewhere along the line, I had to grow up. And of course, this isn't my story, it's your story. But one day I got desperate and I grew up and that changed everything. And from that, accountability came into place for me. And I put people around me that could hold me accountable. My parents didn't do it very well. No offense to them, but they didn't necessarily hold me accountable. But I learned how to get people around me that held me accountable. So when you look at your story there, you're a hoodlum. Now you're a hoodlum with getting a new face. You're getting a new image. Who was it in that journey that started to teach you what you know how to work hard, you know how to be resourceful, but who was it that started to really help you believe in yourself so that hockey stick was starting to curve up and you were starting to get some successes?
Well, when first started there, I didn't know what I needed to do to be a good employee. Didn't know what a good employee was. I didn't have any role models around me to watch, my dad or my brothers or my moms or anybody. So when I got that opportunity, I wanted to make that guy thankful that he gave me an opportunity. I worked my tail off. But I still did not know if I was being a good employee or not. I didn't have a reference,
Mm.
but I did not have an off switch. And I was determined that I needed to make something happen. That I knew that it wasn't normal to have to sleep in my car. I knew that it wasn't normal to dig in dumpsters, make things work. And So when I got that job, I continued to look for other jobs as well, and I ended up becoming a repo man for a buy here, pay here lot for a little while as well. And both of those together kept me from digging in dumpsters. But and then I progressed past that in a few years. But this business, as you just talked about with David Long and you, the this I tell people all the time, this is a no money down business. You don't have to step in this business with a 4-year education. You don't have to step in this business with all you have to do is bring the right attitude and the right effort and continuously bring that every single day and be a student of the game. And there is no limit to what's out there. And there's other industries that's that way, but there's so many stories inside of this industry that gets repeated. I mean, look at David Long's story and what come from there. And this where you got started there, Bart, and you had your mom covering for you there. The We are so fortunate to be in a business where there isn't necessarily a reset button. All you gotta do is start today, not wait till tomorrow, start today and bring the right attitude, the right effort, and do that over and over again and always be a student. And if we do that, all we do is progressively get better.
Okay, cool. So having had that happen, you were resourceful. You just didn't have an off button. You just kept going. You made sure that you started to see yourself a little bit differently. Tell us about what I'm fascinated about is your leadership ability today. The fact that you are probably one of the most elite leaders in the country in this industry, where you really understood what leadership is all about. So take us to that journey of when you discovered leadership and who had the most impact on you in that realm to have you become a good leader. Who are your teachers?
Well, it transitions over time, and because as you hit different levels, then you find different ones that you want to chase after. When I first stepped into that car dealer, I looked around to look and see who was the best person there, and I wanted to chase that, and because I felt like, well, if they're the best, maybe that helps me be a good employee, and I'll chase them. But that's kind of that first level of position. That first level is getting there, and then you got to chase after something. And so that first level of leadership was truly Charlie giving me that opportunity. And because I was nothing sitting in front of him, absolutely nothing. But he says, I think this guy can be more, and I'm going to give him a chance to be more. And no matter how you want to split that, call it chance, call it whatever, that's leadership because that's our job as leaders is to develop people.
Yes.
And the, so I landed a position with him. Well, that became my permission to open up and be better, open up and be who I can be. And all it became the name of my book later on, and I didn't have the verbiage of it at the time, but I didn't know how to do a lot of these things. So I would break things down into, okay, well, I can't climb that mountain, but I can take that first step and on that and climbing that mountain. And then I broke things down into very doable steps. And when you break things down into very doable steps, they become achievable. And you can't it's like decorating your Christmas tree. You don't just take a minute and go look at your Christmas tree, put a couple things on, it's done. No, it's you gotta start with this and then add that, and then you put your lights on first, and your garland, and then your bulbs. There's you keep doing it step by step. Well, that becomes natural on those things, but when you're trying to learn something different, you have to break those things down. You gotta go backwards on it and break those things down. And over time, I said, "It's my next step. It's my next step. It's my next step." It isn't, I'm on my 5th step. It's what is next? What's next? What's next? And over time, it became mile 1. What is my next mile 1? And then that ended up becoming the name of my book later on in life. And but it's just saying, hey, whatever those challenges are, no matter what it is, whether it's parenting, whether it's whatever industry you're in, it's breaking things down into achievable, doable steps where your mind believes that they can do it. You talked about Craig Rochelle a few moments ago and talking about your mind, and your mind believes everything you tell it. And if you look at that mountain and you think there's no way I can climb it, you're right. There's no way you can climb it.
Right.
But if you tell yourself that it may take me a bit, but I'm going to claw my way up there, and you start clawing, you start getting closer to the top and closer to the top. And then before you know it, you're at the top. And it's breaking things down into achievable steps.
Isn't that so funny? You mentioned a few minutes ago someone who believed in you. And I'm sure there's hundreds of young men and women who can say, I'm here because Ed believed in me. And that I remember it was when I first got into rehab, actually, I had a funny thing. This David said the same thing. I had a counselor who didn't believe in me. He said I'd never make it. And that made me so mad that I was going to make sure I did everything to make it. And I bet today, I bet that guy did said that to everybody. Because if he had told somebody, "Oh, you're gonna make it," and take that approach, they might have lost the edge. But
Yeah.
I was so mad. David said that when I asked him, "Who are your role models in your life?" He said, "I didn't have any." And I did exactly the opposite of what my role models did. I'd never heard that before, right? Because I'm a motivator. I want people to feel good. I want to lift them up and I want to catch them doing something right, which is all good. And so many people have such low self-image that believing in them might be the only time anybody in their life ever does, right?
Absolutely. It reminds me of a story that there's this storm that rolls in, and this gentleman's walking the beach, and there's starfish everywhere that's washed ashore. And off in the distance, he notices a reflection of something moving around and a splashing in the water, and he walks towards it, and he notices this young man picking up starfish and throwing them back in the water. And he asked him, he says, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm throwing these starfish back." He said, "Well, there's hundreds of thousands of them. There's no way you can make a difference here." And he picks up one, throws it in the water, and he says, "I made a difference with that one."
Mm,
And Charlie, I'm Charlie Starfish. He made a difference with me because he gave me that opportunity and I needed that.
yes.
And it's our responsibilities as leaders, no matter what the industry is, to go out and find those starfishes that we can make a difference with, because it's those elements it's things that we do by chasing those things, by trying to be that to help others and help others succeed. It's those things that'll be elements that we don't think anything of that meant to the world to someone else.
Yeah.
And if you have that intentionality, it'll happen over and over again. And
Mhm.
I want to believe that I've saved a few starfish,
Yes.
but I haven't saved nearly as many as I want to. I got plenty more to go save.
I told you this last time we talked. My goal in the next 5 years was to influence 10,000 people. But somewhere the Holy Spirit said to me, Bart, it's not 10 years. It's not 5 years. It's in the next 5 months. I have no idea what that means, but I love big, hairy, audacious, purpose filled goals because then I know, especially if it's got the Holy Spirit around behind it, I don't have to push a Chevy pickup up a muddy hill by myself. I've got help. Absolutely. So and I don't know the answer to this, so this isn't a loaded question, but you became a tech. And then I know you moved up, but tell us a little bit about your path of moving up because again, now you're the general manager, COO. Talk to us about the different steps and what happened in those different steps. So if somebody's watching this and they're thinking, I don't have any tools, but I have big dreams, but I don't have any tools. Talk to us about your journey on that and how you got from there to here.
So Bart, that's another element of the higher power. And for there may be some non-believers out there, and that's okay. But I'll express that a bit. A lot of times, again, doesn't matter the industry. It just happens to be automotive with me. A lot of times, when a position opens up, we our people get upset because they didn't get put in that position. And the one of the things that I learned very early on is if I'm going to grow, if I'm going to grow outside of being this apprentice tech to being a technician, to being a team leader, to being a shop foreman, to being a service manager, to being a fixed ops director, I can't just do the job that I have. I got to do the job of the role in front of me. And so that I'm the obvious choice for that next deal. A lot of times we say, okay, well, that service manager is retiring. Hopefully they'll give me the chance. Well, maybe the service manager's not retiring. Maybe he's not cutting it and they had to make a change. The last thing that those companies want to do is bring someone in that has zero experience being that service manager that pulls things up from where they're at. So if you haven't prepared yourself for being the obvious choice for that next role, then it's nobody's fault but your own. And so we have to do the role that we're hired for, and that's what we're paid to do. And
Mm,
then if we want to grow, we have to put ourselves in position to do the role in front of us and do it without any expectation of anything coming from it. And as you do those things, you're bettering yourself as a person. You're learning the other elements of around what you do. And then when something opens up, whether it's retirement, whether it's gotta make a change or whatever else, you're the obvious choice. You have to make yourself the obvious choice to be in that next role. And a lot of times there's this entitlement where we feel like, well, I've been here the longest. Well, merit doesn't have anything to do with being the next person to move the company forward. And so I learned that very early on that I can't expect things to land in my lap, that I have to go out and knock those doors off the hinges and prepare myself to be that. And that's just being an ongoing student. And we talked about it earlier. We have to understand that we can get better no matter where we're at. We can get better every single day. And if we strive to do that, it's not that we didn't prepare ourselves. It's we saw the things to prepare ourselves with. It was right there in front of us. And it's a choice of whether we do or not. And so, yes, I moved from being an apprentice to a technician to a team leader to shop foreman to service manager to fixed ops director in the first 10 years of my career. Left the dealership world, went to work for Ford Motor Company for a period of time, came back when my family was getting sick and needed someone as they was aging, needed someone to be closer to them. Came back, got back in the dealership world, and I realized coming back that this is my home, that I love being on the people side of the business. And was there a sense of gratitude to someone coming from the hood and then working their way up to working for Ford Motor Company? Yeah, there's a sense of gratitude there. But that wasn't my purpose. My purpose is to connect with people and go out and find some more starfish.
Mm.
And come back into the dealership world was my purpose. And I came back here. I started here at Bozard Ford in September of 2012 as the fixed operations director. And I made the 43rd employee when I started here. And here we are 13 years later. I have progressed through the fixed ops role to COO and now COO and GM, and we have 449 employees,
Oh my goodness.
and more than 10 times growth. And I had 7 technicians back then. I have 165 technicians now. I had 3 advisors then. I have 37 advisors now. And we had 8 salespeople. I have 58 salespeople now. So it's always, and then it's pushing that through our people to where we always got to looking to get better. And we call ourselves BTOP, best team on the planet. Well, the best team on the planet doesn't mean we're all the best players, but it means that we're going to play the best as a team, and we're going to learn to get together, and we're going to grow together, and we're going to push each other to get better. And so we play better as a team than the others out there. And you don't have to have the best players when you play the best as a team. And that's where the elements of any given Sunday. You don't have to be the best team. You can be any team when you do the right things together. And that's what we strive to do. I'm in the town is 16,000 people, the county's 300,000 people, and we run at a rate that is unheard of even in the metro market. And those are pretty cool elements. But go back to what we said a few minutes ago. We're just getting started. We know that there's opportunity in front of us. We know there's additional opportunity to grow service. There's additional opportunity to grow the volume piece of the store. There's additional opportunity to expand our brand. There's additional opportunity for other verticals. We're just getting started. And that just goes to show that the limits only exist in our mind. And the more you remove those things, the more you open up, that vision becomes clearer of what we can accomplish. And then taking that vision, and we say we got to sell that vision to our team. Well, it isn't selling the vision to the team. It's opening up that vision to the team and getting them to buy in. And when they buy into that vision, the pace just goes so much faster.
That's so good. I love what Gallup talks about in terms of being a good coach. And they do say that if you've got a group of people who do one-on-ones coaching, the performance increases by 72.85%. And they talk about 3 things. And number 1 is set expectations. And I always thought that's great. It's great to set expectations, like you said. But what you said was that you said, you didn't literally say it, but you said it. What's their expectations? If we don't know their expectations and mirror it with our expectations, and they know our expectations, then the 2 don't come together. And I think that's what most leaders seem to, this is what we want, but they don't find out what they want. And how's that quote go? My favorite quote, Zig Ziglar, you can get anything you want if you help enough people get what they want.
Yes.
And that's where, when we're on the same page, we're helping them get what they want. They're helping us get what we want. And together it's a we thing, right? That's so good.
let's dive into that a bit because there's so much out there to where we have so many leaders saying we got to hold our teams accountable.
Mm,
Well, what you're saying is I want them to do a good job for me.
mhm,
Well,
mm,
more times than not, there's a misalignment on what is a good job. You know what that good job is. They don't. They think they're doing a good job for you, and they don't know they're not doing a good job until you come zap them. So then, when you grow from that, it goes to the commitment thing. And so let's back up and say, okay, well, let's set expectations with them. Well, setting expectations now we're leveling it off to where, okay, we know what's expected. They know what's expected, and let's push towards it and we hold them accountable. But it even gets deeper than that. When you set those expectations, it isn't that okay. Now we set expectations. Let's get the commitment that they agree that they can hit those expectations. And
mhm.
when you get that commitment, that's the buy-in.
Yeah.
Now, so a lot of times we just automatically go to hold them accountable. Well, hold them accountable to what? And ask yourself, I want the audience to ask themselves, have I told my team what a good job looks like? Because more times than not, our teams don't know what a good job looks like. You may have that good job in your mind of what you want from them, but they may think those 11 cars that they sell every single month is plenty enough for them to live and they're happy with it. It may drive you crazy that they only sell 11, but to them, they're doing a good job. To you, you don't know why they don't get it. Well, that's a misalignment.
Yeah.
And if we're going to accept a misalignment, that's our fault.
Yeah.
But when we align on those things, then it becomes so much fun.
And how do we align? What's the way to align between what they want, what we want, bringing the two together and let it be a dance in unison?
When I do a keynote a lot of times when I talk about 3 different levels of people. You got the entitled, you got the coexister, and you have the opportunists. The opportunists are the ones that's always chasing something. They're chasing to break that next record. They're chasing that next position. They're self-motivated. They're self-driving. And those coexisters are the ones that we get the most upset about, but those are the ones that really keep our business going. They're the easiest to predict. We know they're going to sell 11 cars every single month. We know they're not going to have CSI challenges because that's what fits them. But the entitled ones are the ones that's always trying to pull those people back. And it's finding the ways to identify the entitled ones and spending our time with most of our time with them. Because if we're not spending our time with them, they're spending their time with our coexisters and our
Mm,
opportunists and pulling them back.
mm,
And when we start spending our time, because we most of the time we find ourselves spending time with the opportunists because they're the fun ones to hang out with, they're the ones making things happen. And so that's where we spend our time with, and we talk about the other ones. When we shift that and pull ourselves away from that opportunist and move it over to the entitled ones, they self-select out. And then when you have a team that has less entitled people and you have the ones that coexisting, those are just steady eddies. Those are the ones that's easiest to forecast. They're not going to have the ebb and flows of your opportunists.
mm.
Then you got those guys that haven't, maybe they haven't figured out life yet, and something that they haven't got married, life hasn't started for them. They are your future opportunists. So we got to thank our opportunists for what they're doing. We got to encourage our coexisters for what they're capable of and show them that but we can't force them there. When we force them there, you're putting too much pressure on them. They'll self-select out. What the ones you got to make sure that you allow to self-select or put the pressure on the self-select out is the entitled ones that's pulling
Mm,
everybody else back
mm.
and minimizing those to where you have a good blend of opportunists and coexisters. The audience may think, I don't need coexisters. You have them and you've been accepting them for years. So, but you turn a blind eye to the entitled and quit turning a blind eye to them, and you can make everyone better around them.
How do you do that? How do you take somebody who's entitled and help them? And there's two parts to this question. A, how do you do it? But B, how do you get them to be opportunists? And have you, I guess not how, but have you taken entitled up the ladder to opportunist?
So, yes, it happens all the way around. You have to connect with your people. And that is our job as leaders is to make those connections. I mean, Maxwell says it best, leadership is influence. And that is an accurate statement. You have to have influence on our people, and you can't have influence if you're not connected with them. So when you connect with your people, you can determine who they are. And as we connect with some of those entitled ones don't know that you care.
Yeah.
Once they know that you care and that you're willing to spend time with them, they'll move themselves to another step. But
Mm,
some of them just feels like the world owes them.
Yeah.
And I use different pictures to show the different ones. But let's look at the homeless guy that has the sign that says, "Hey, we'll work for food," or "anything helps," or whatever else. What he's really saying is he's not going to work for food. He's saying it's your fault. I'm out here. I lost my job because of the regime that you voted in. Give me your money because it's your fault. That's easy for us to see. That's
Mhm.
an entitlement. And I use another picture that shows someone leaning over a trash can, picking stuff up out of it, maybe picking food out of it and whatever. And I can paint the picture there of he's positioned himself to where he understands what's happening. Bart, you just walked out of Five Guys, dumped a bag of warm fries in the trash can because you was going to take them back to the office, but realized you need to go somewhere else. So you just toss them in the trash can. He's positioned to where he sees that. He walks over there, stands over the trash can, eats those fries out of that bag that you just tossed in there. They're still warm. There's nothing wrong with them. It's tugging on the heartstrings of everybody that sees him doing that. So they're bringing him money. But what he's done is figure out how I don't have to work very hard and I can exist. And then the opportunist is that guy like I was digging in the dumpsters. I'm not going to ask you for your money. I'm not going to go find my food in the trash. I'm going to go earn my way. And then I can paint those pictures with different ones. Let's talk about the entitled one from a salesperson standpoint, where he's the one that you're tired of him being in the bucket. You're tired of him being here. So you set him in your office and say, if you don't do your callbacks, if you don't do this, if you don't do that, you can't work here anymore. So then he starts calling his people back, and someone tells him that, "Hey, I'm sorry, I bought it down the road motors." And he says, "What do you mean you bought it down the road motors? I spent 3 hours with you." Well, to that customer, he's ensuring to them that they made the right decision by not buying from him. But
Mhm.
you're not connected with him to even hear that conversation. And so you say, "Oh, yeah, I got him able to make it with callbacks now." Well, what you're really doing is driving people away from your business. But if you sat down with him and said, "Hey, we're going to call your customers back today together and see how many deals." Then when you hear that guy bought down the road, you say, "Okay, well, what did they do that we didn't?" Whatever that may be, make that connection to, okay, how can we get better? And a lot of times we just beat them with a stick and tell them they need to go do it. But if we engage ourselves with them and go do it with them, we quickly find out that they're either going to make that shift or they're not going to make that shift. And when they're not going to make that shift, you have to put the pressure on. Either you decide if they can't be on the team or put enough pressure on them where they decide they can't be on the team. But those are really very few because when you start engaging with them and showing that you care about them as a person and that you want them to succeed and that you are willing to invest your time to help them, they make that move. And those are the ones when they start to make that move, they make that move right on past the coexister and they become the opportunist.
So good. So what pops into my mind is that it goes back to Simon Sinek's why, right? It
Absolutely.
and I read a book once. I told somebody this morning this, so I always feel like I repeat myself when I say this on my podcast, but I read a book once From Phoenix to Atlanta, and it was called The Quality of Your Life is Determined by the Quality of Your Questions. Of course, that's a Tony Robbins quote. And in that book, it really was talking about how to be a great coach, which I don't like the word coach because it's too broad. I like the word activator. How do we activate the thinking? You talked subconscious earlier. How do we activate the area where their belief systems sit? Well, a great leader, especially nowadays, has to be great at asking, listening, asking, listening, asking, listening, and pay attention to what they're hearing, right? And just be so great. And in that book, it says that our job isn't to judge, our job is to be curious. And great leaders are really curious because, look, you're an opportunist. Most people aren't, 80% are not. And yet, if you didn't, in your journey on this path, didn't think and find out how the entitlement and how the
And
uh,
sister.
if you didn't know how the coexister listed thought, then how can you help them? You can't help them if you don't know how they think. And then you also mentioned connection. We can't connect if we don't ask, right? We can't connect if we don't have that allowing them to come with what they think. Eustace Wolfington talked about what was called the 3 C's. Remember Eustace?
Yep.
Yes, what a great human. And he talked about the 3 C's: connect, then we can convey. And then once we can convey what we mean because there's a lot of people in this industry that like to convey their thoughts, like to direct the thoughts to people, but you can't do that until you connect, right?
Absolutely.
So then we convey, and then we have to make sure they get it, because most of the time when we convey something, we don't check with them to see, hey, what I just say. So the third one is check. Tell me what I just said. Repeat that back to me. And that's when they really start to hear us. And I believe that's when growth happens. And that's why in my world, I've noticed, even though I didn't love them when I started, that one-on-ones have changed my life. In my ministry, in our leadership, they've changed my life, Ed. The one-on-ones.
So let me help you with that, and you're saying it there too. You're saying it without saying it. It's empathy, and that's where a lot of leaders miss it is they don't make that connection. Our people need to know that we care about what they care about,
Yeah.
and when you make that connection, now we're listening to them because you heard a piece of my story. We talked a little bit about David Long. We talked about your story, Bart. Everyone has a story,
Everybody.
and they need to know that you care, that
Yeah,
they have the story, and that it matters to you.
yeah,
And when you can layer in that empathy, and that's exactly what you're doing with the one-on-ones, is you're layering in the opportunity to show them that you can connect with them at their level and you can care about the things that they care about.
yeah,
And in return, you need them to care about the things that you need them to care about as well. And
yeah,
it goes back and forth. But it's that level of empathy and being willing to listen, like you just said, to be curious.
yeah,
Unfortunately, we listen way too many times just to respond. As soon as they stop, if you was listening, you would know they're just gathering their thoughts and they're not done speaking yet. But you was waiting for them just to quit saying a word so that you can start talking. We listen to respond, and we don't even necessarily connect. And we do that with our spouses. We do it with everybody.
yeah. So good. I mean, if we think about that, we used to say this agenda anxiety is when you just can't wait for them to shut up so you can take over, right? You mentioned, I can't imagine you doing that, but you mentioned your I personality. And so am I. And I think just think, and at least for me, not necessarily you, because I don't see that in you, but I feel like sometimes, come on, what I have to say is really important. That's why I got a podcast, right? But it's not the most important piece in the room. And when I've learned to ask better and listen better and really listen with empathy, just like Covey said, seek first to understand, then to be understood. There's no better phrase ever said, right? So if we can do that, like you said, I'm a better husband for sure when I shut up and listen. Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Bart, I went through for 25 years in this industry and made some really good grounds and came from an apprentice tech to where I'm in, where into a fixed ops role and never told my story. What really flipped the switch is about 8 years ago, I started telling my story and allow people to relate with me as a person. And I
Yes.
learned so much from that. And it showed me that it isn't, I don't need to hide from my past because everybody has whatever their low point is their low point. It may not be the low point for you, but it is their low point. And when we can connect with them and find that and find the things that makes them tick, find the things that motivate them, find the things that they're chasing at, the it and let them know that we care about them getting better.
Yeah.
It changes them as a person.
That's so good. Yeah, I had a friend of mine one day say, "Why do you always tell people your history of your recovery story? Like right away, right?" And I said, "I want them to know I'm real. I come in with this big personality and the hair's flopping around and stuff. They might not be able to relate to any of that. But I want to know, I want to, for realness, say this is where I've been and this is where I am." Because you're right. It might not be their story, but some there in that other unconscious, they say, well, he's been there. I haven't been, I'm not that bad. Or he's been there. He's just like me. Right. And talk about connection. That's brilliant. I want to talk about, we're going longer, but if it's okay with you, you got a few more minutes?
Absolutely.
Okay. I want to hear about mile one. I want to talk about the book a few minutes, but I also want to talk about your coaching business. So I'll let you give us any information you want on either one of them, but I'd love to hear about your book first, if we may. And if we have time, talk about what made you decide to do a leadership coaching business.
So for years, probably the last 15 years, I've had several people tell me you need to write a book because of different ways of connecting with people, different ways of doing different things or whatever else. I said, this needs to get out. You need to write a book. And I thought, I'm not an author. Oh, that's not who I am. I'll never write a book. And at some point, I started making notes. I said, well, if I ever write a book, I'll make sure I put this in there and I'll make sure I put that in there. And so that went on for years. And then about 3.5 years ago, I made some connections with different ones, John Gordon, Clint Pover, and some other people, Damon West. And I was talking with Clint and we was going back and forth on some stuff and it just clicked. And well, I just decided I was going to write a book. And I hung up with him and then I called him back a few months later and I says, you've pushed me over the edge. I'm going to write a book. And put those notes, I took those notes and I pulled them together. And really, in the time of writing the book, it was really a short window. I started writing in March and published it at the end of August. And that's a really short window to write a book. But ultimately, it's because it was years of notes and it was years of preparation that put that into place to where it was just, okay, now let's make it all make sense. And so from the window, it was certainly small, but there was a lot of time there. And I'm not done because there's elements of my story that I didn't share in the book that I think creates another book that will allow people to relate to those elements and say, well, hey, if he can do it, I can do it.
Mm.
And if I can create additional starfish by doing that's what I want to do. And I want to rewrite mile one. I think there's some things as soon as you push the done button, maybe it's because it was a 6 month window, whatever. As soon as you push the done button, you think, "Man, I could have put this in there. I could have put that in there." So I do plan to rewrite mile one and call it mile one repaved and expand that a bit. And because if we're constantly learning, we should be able to constantly share those learnings with others. And if we can share those learnings with others, then we're helping others get better. And that's the cool elements. Never set out to be an author. It just we don't know what a day is going to bring, and you just have to be open and follow whatever that is that drives you there.
Give us 3 points of the book that you feel were the biggest 3 biggest points that you wanna land with the reader.
So in the book, I give a little bit of my story, and then I talk about breaking things down to achievable steps. That is a key element of mile one. Is breaking things down to achievable steps. And then another one is one of the chapters is called busy versus effective. A lot of times we make ourselves very busy with just mere busyness, and we're not necessarily effective. And we have to circle back and look at the things that caused us to be busy, but not necessarily effective. And that really boils down to whether are you working on the business or are you working in the business? And more times than not, if you break it down to should do's and must do's, most of the time we let the should do's rob all of our time and the must do's never get done. So we never work on the
Mm.
business. So busy versus effective, I think is really impactful. And if we're not changing, we're dying. So the final chapter is how to manage change in a positive and effective way. And change is inevitable. And a lot of times we still resist change. You have to be open to change and be willing to change and be flexible. But then also you have to push that through our people and help them understand the value of why we need to change, why we have to get better, why we have to continue to progress. And when we do those things, we all win from it. So if I had to give somebody 3 points, those would be the 3 points that I would give someone to take away from the book.
Love
First chapter, middle chapter, and end chapter.
Right on. And Dan Nicholas is a friend of mine. I've done some stuff with him. He's a Maxwell guy too, and he owns 14 different businesses in Midland, Texas. And we were talking yesterday that he and I are on the same journey. It's transformation. And you mentioned that we're always learning, and that's our job as head coaches is to help people transform, which is what you're doing. You're a servant leader that's helping them transform to be the best, reach max capacity on this planet. I love the quote, mile one is an endless journey of serving. And you just have a servant's heart, my friend. You just do. It's a mindset of constant progression. It embodies inspiration where every step is an investment in the growth and the development of our teams. Highlighting our potential is boundless. Love that. That says it all right there. So well said. And I'm gonna read what your friend Clint, who you have high regards for, said, the one who encouraged you. It's a love letter. I love that because a friend of mine, Joel Manby, wrote a book, you know, Joel,
Oh yeah.
Love Works.
Love works.
And he's a great friend. He's got a great message, and it's based on Second Corinthians. And that's the way business needs to operate, doesn't it? But he says, your friend Clint, it's a love letter to leadership and the ultimate guide to creating an organization as good as the people in it. Woo! It is not about the business, it's about the people. I frankly don't love the business. Doesn't mean I don't like it. Don't misunderstand, but I love the people.
People.
Yes. Yeah. So great job, Clint. That was a great quote there. You had something you were going to add to that.
So we created a challenge coin for my team. And on the back of that challenge coin is that thing you just read to the
Right.
audience,
Right.
because that is an impactful statement that never grows old.
Yeah, good. Servant leadership. Love it. Love it. You know, one of the greatest books on that was Lead Like Jesus by Ken Blanchard. Yeah, that's a great book. And again, if you're listening to this, you might not have belief systems the same as ours. It's okay. You got to believe. If you don't believe in something, you'll fall for anything. I'll just say that. But you know what? I personally, I need help. I need the Eds in the world and the Jesuses of the world, and I need their help. So I'm going to always bring up Jesus because I am not shy of who I am, and I know Ed's not either. It's who we are. So talk to me about, as we land this, your leadership company and what you've done. I'll let you explain who your clients are, but you've done some really powerful things, and you've got a team.
Well, again, if you do things with a purpose, if you set out to do something and the intent is only to win, then not necessarily the best things happen. And I've never set out with a purpose to win. I've set out with a purpose to get better. And so I got a phone call several years ago, and it was from a gentleman at Ford Motor Company, and he says, "Hey, I need you to make some recommendations." He says, we really need some help with our dealers to do this and this." And he says, "I need you to make some recommendations on who can help us do that. We want to hire a third party company to go out and do that." And I said, "Let me put some thought into it, and give me a couple days and I'll call you back." So I called him back in about a week and told him, I said, "You're asking me to find someone that does what we do here." And I said, "I don't think they exist." And his words to me was, he says, "That's why I called you." And that was the start of putting something together. And so we had some conversation. Over the next year, I built a business, hired some coaches, submit some proposals, and we do some work for 3 different manufacturers. And I have a team of coaches that we send in the stores. Some of them are project stores, some of them are stores that just want to get better. Some of them are middle of the road stores that are just hanging on, don't necessarily know what to do, and they're good by default, all different levels. And it's been a very cool ride. Now, sometimes we'll go into stores and we can't help. Well, I don't say that we can't help them ever. We just can't help them yet. They're not ready to make those changes.
Right.
And I use a book a lot of times. I don't think I have it out here. Leadership and the Art of Deception. A lot of times there's elements that we're the problem, and we don't know it until we see it. And we have to open ourselves up to look in the mirror and see that sometimes we contribute to some of that. And sometimes our teams that we go in and see aren't ready to make those changes. But the ones that are, it's a lot of fun. And I am honored to have the opportunity to represent manufacturers and honored to have the opportunity to go out and create more starfish.
That's so good. What's triggered with that when you said that is what caused you and I to talk a couple weeks ago. And that was the culture scorecard.
Yep.
And that there's 10 components, and I won't read them all off, but key components that really allow us to have a good culture. And when I brought it up to you, you said, "Yep, I know every one of those." And that's how we operate. And not many people do, but effective communication, trust and respect, accountability, continuous learning, living values, appreciation are just 6 of them that we are giving to the stakeholders in the company so that they can rate their bosses and their organization on how they operate. And what's so great about it is it's anonymous, yet it's an incredible opportunity to see where do we really stand. And yet you and I were talking about this a couple weeks ago. I said some people don't want to hear it, right? They don't want to know where they're wrong. They don't want to know the real answers, right? And if they don't, then there's probably nothing that anyone can do for them if they don't want to hear that. Correct.
We have to be humble enough. Patrick Lencioni read a book about hungry, humble, and smart.
Mm.
We have to be humble enough to understand that we, in every situation, we're part of the problem. We have to be part of the solution.
Amen.
And if we resist that, we're resisting the opportunity to grow and get.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for giving me the time. And for our audience to be able to hear your wisdom. That's powerful, so powerful. And I also want to congratulate you on your new journey as a general manager. Good for you. That I'm sure there's a whole list of whole big to-do list that you didn't have before, but congratulations for you saying, "Come on, bring it on. I want to learn." And I also want to congratulate you on your book and the journey and your coaching company and who you are as a father and a husband. We didn't talk about that today, but it's real evident. I know that what drives you, and you come from such, again, a humble spirit. And I want to thank you for that. If somebody wants to get a hold of you, how would they do that?
The easiest way to get a hold of me is through LinkedIn. Everything's there. I don't hide anything. My phone number, my email address, everything. Look me up on LinkedIn. I'm past my connection limit, but you can follow me. But also just look at my info. It's everything's there. And love to chat with whoever's out there. But Bart, I want to tell you, I'm honored to be on the show here with you. This is a great honor. I have a ton of respect for you, and I appreciate you bringing this to our audience.
And thank you, my friend. Likewise. I remember the first time I called you out of the blue in a cold call, and to connect at this level, it just means the world. So thank you, my friend. Merry Christmas to you. Merry Christmas to the audience. You might be hearing this after Christmas, but we hope you had a good one. Thank you again, Ed. And if you're interested, share this with everybody you can, and go ahead and subscribe to and let people know about this podcast, folks. Appreciate you. God bless you, everybody. And we'll see you next time on Keep the Change.